Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining our financial results call for the first half of the fiscal year 2024. Slide 2. Initially, I'll give a brief outline of the first half consolidated financial results, and then we'll move on to a couple of key topics, and of course touch base on what the second half of 2024 looks like. And a little bit of a preview into potentially into 2025 here, and then, of course, happy to take any questions that may arise. So initially on slide 4 is our first half performance for 2024, which was announced yesterday, of revenue of roughly 36 billion Japanese yen. This was divided about 28.5 billion yen from the PeptiDream side, and about 7.6 billion yen from the PDR Radiopharma, from the radiopharmaceutical business side of the equation. We, of course, now have a core operating profit at 24 billion Japanese yen, and at current net income of roughly 18 billion Japanese yen. As everyone is aware, we had initially forecasted in February of 2024 to have revenue for the fiscal year of 35 billion Japanese yen, with these numbers or this revenue projection revised in May to 45 billion yen on the announcement of the Novartis collaboration, which occurred of course, in the end of April. When we made these forecast projections in May, there still remains some uncertainty as to the totality of the impact, I would say, of the Novartis deal, in that while the upfront payment had been set at $180 million, we actually had to take the deal through the HSR review process at the US FTC, which is something we hadn't done before. And that usually, of course, causes about a 30-day delay in being able to finalize the deal. And the deal was then finalized in basically mid-June. And then with the deal finalization, of course, there is a certain amount of time before we actually received the upfront payment from Novartis. And as everyone was aware, because that was in US dollars, we certainly were exposed to certain, say, currency risks while we waited to exchange that US dollar, significant US dollar payment into to Japanese yen. And so therefore, when we made this forecast in May, of course, we were what I would call intentionally conservative in our projection to basically be safe. One additional aspect also is once the deal was completed in June, we had to start discussing with our auditors, our external auditors, as to what percentage of the upfront money would in fact be accounted for in our first half earnings here. And so the end result of this was, in fact, of course, we went through the HSR process smoothly. We were very fortunate to receive the US dollar-based wire transfer in mid-July. And our CFO, Kyo, did a fantastic job of actually getting us an extremely favorable, what I'd call extremely favorable currency exchange rate in the 157, 158 US dollar to Japanese yen rate, which looks fantastic, of course, now. And so those were all, I think we had a lot of really nice things kind of happen in parallel there. And so where we sit today, of course, is now as we look at the results through the end of June, many of you may be wondering that we're 80% of the way there as far as meeting our revenue goals for the year as set in May. In addition, as you look at the core operating profit, and net income bars, all of those are, of course, exceeded the 100%, right? Roughly 120% of that goal has already been achieved. And so we'll briefly touch on what the second half of 2024 looks like for us. But I would just want to make the comment that as we sit toward the second half of this year, we have a number of catalysts and or potential additional revenue sources that may cause us to revise again these earnings upward here in the second half of 2024, and we will do so expeditiously if any of those events actually take place. Next slide, Nick. So in regards specifically to PeptiDream, here shown on slide 5, of course, in the first half, the main revenue source was from the Novartis deal expansion. And this was not just around RI-PDCs only. We expanded the number of programs in the RI-PDC space we were doing with Novartis. In addition to that, we in fact added an additional different type of PDC programs to the deal. They weren't announced specifically in the press release that we had sent out, but another type of peptide drug conjugate was also part of this deal. So it was an expansion of our collaboration around RI-PDCs, and then it was also had a new component to it as far as adding additional types of peptide drug conjugate programs to the collaboration. And so really just a fantastic overall result, and I think really goes to show how much success we've had across the Novartis collaboration to date. There was a small amount of money, of course, that was accounted for as milestones and other R&D funding, roughly around 1 billion yen or so. That also happened here in the first half. As we look toward the second half, and again, I think these are our conservative projections. As we look to the second half of 2024 here, we anticipate, of course, I'll start on the right, though, the milestones into R&D funding of around 1.2 to 2.5 billion yen. And in fact, here just in July, we announced another Novartis milestone that will show up in the third quarter results, of course. That was around 1.1 or 1.2 billion yen already. So we're of course fairly comfortable or confident in achieving the high end range, probably on this milestone, etc. bucket on the right. On the upfront payments, we write 0 to 2.4 billion yen. I think this is probably just at this stage some unknown. We have a couple of deals that will likely close in the second half of 2024. I'll say that will have a high likelihood of closing that would fall in this range. But I would also say, in addition to that, we're actually negotiating a number of large deals with a number of existing foreign pharmaceutical partners and also new potential pharmaceutical partners that have the potential to be quite significant. With Novartis deal happening, I think in the first half of 2024, of course, we've done very well financially already for the year. But we really have two types of deal structures, as most people are probably aware. One is collaboration type deals or discovery-based collaboration type deals. Often those type of deals, we might have less say on when that deal actually completes. And that is in contrast to, say, out-licensing type deals, such as finding partners for our myostatin program or our internal IL-17 program or other internal programs that we might have. Those type of out-licensing deals, we have, say, much more control, of course, over when we determine or decide to, say, out-license or partner on those assets. So with those two buckets in mind, I would say, as far as internal assets that we were looking to out-license potentially for 2024, I would say we're largely shifting those to 2025 at this stage. We will continue to build out, say, the data packages around myostatin and other internal assets, more with a view to value up those programs further before we maybe consummate any kind of out-licensing and or partnering deals. And so those have a little bit more of again, I'd say a runway toward the 2025 fiscal year. As far as the collaboration bucket goes, again, we have a number of deals in negotiation, almost as we always do, which are quite significant. And as of today, I am not yet sure whether or not we will be able to, whether those deals will consummate in 2024 or whether those deals will in fact be able to be moved to 2025. Our honest preference would, of course, would probably be to see those move into 2025 if we have say in that matter. But I'd say there's a very high likelihood that we, in fact, may not have a say in when those deals are consummated. As certain of these partners, of course, have certain budgets already set up for the fiscal 2024 calendar year that might result in those deals again happening during this fiscal year. So as soon as we see any of these deals kind of come together and or that are announced, again, as I mentioned, we will revise upward accordingly at that time. And so I think that's how we'll have to play by ear the second half of 2024 from the perspective of PeptiGen. In regards to the PDR-radiopharma business, the first half of 2024 had first quarter and second quarter combined revenue of around 7.7 billion Japanese yen. This is pretty much in line with forecasts for us. Last year, I think in the first half of last year, we saw roughly around 8 billion yen. So this is pretty much very consistent with that. We overall are expecting the second half to look a little better. Should actually trend potentially a little bit higher here, more toward the 8 billion range of this. But total revenue for the full fiscal 2024 year should come in between 15.4 and 16.2 billion Japanese yen. As is listed here, some of the, I guess, headwinds are still the slow recovery in the SPECT business. Slow recovery, I think, just overall weakness in the SPECT business. There's just, it's not a super area of growth. And we're just trying to kind of maintain, I'd say, the status quo as far as the SPECT business goes. The PET aspects of the business, and I think partially on the back of Amyvid, is hoping to kind of maintain revenue or potentially start to see revenue growth as we head into the second half of 2024 and looking toward 2025. I think one of the big announcements that we were quite pleased or delighted to announce was the NHI drug price listing for Amyvid, which happened here, I think, in May and June, where we actually saw almost a doubling of the kind of list price for Amyvid. So a very high reimbursement price for this product, which is really fantastic news overall for us in this program. And so we look forward to see how Amyvid sales, which are trending in the right direction, but I still think it's extremely early days, of course, as we see how Alzheimer's and Leqembi sales themselves do, and of course, what impact the approval of Lilly's donanemab in the US has, and whether in fact that gets approved in Japan also in 2024. But I'd say certainly there's tailwinds behind the Amyvid product going forward, and we also hope that Talvid could potentially be approved in the relatively near future, and that also could be start contributing potentially to revenue growth at some point here. So in a good overall position for the PDR-radiopharma business. Again, as we've mentioned multiple times, the real goal is growing the pipeline of products in the portfolio of PDR-radiopharma. That's our true long-term goal, of course, for the business, and the real only way to see revenue growth occur. And I think we're off to an extremely favorable start in regards to that. So continuing on slide 7 is just the overall balance sheet. We had quite a large change in current assets. Of course, this is on the back of not only the Novartis deal in the light blue current asset bucket, but of course, Not to be forgotten is the share sale of our stake in Reid Bio, which actually, of course, occurred when the deal for BMS's acquisition of Reid Bio closed in, I don't remember when, actually, March, maybe, the March-April timeframe, I believe. And the change in the non-current assets here of the negative 8 billion yen, of course, is actually associated with the shares being sold, and then that cash proceeds actually moving into the current assets bucket above. On the liabilities equity side of the equation, of course, the liabilities has also gone up by 8 billion yen, and this is really the tax liability associated with both of these events. As far as our kind of ratio of equity, we're attributable to stakeholders. We're at 61%, so a slight increase. And again, overall medium term, the goal hasn't changed. I'll be even guessed back into the 70 to 80% range for this. And very pleasantly, of course, we are net debt negative, which is a very nice position to be in. Continuing to cash flow. So we closed the end of fiscal year 2023 with about 19.5 billion yen in cash and/or cash equivalents, largely cash, of course. And then the cash flow from activities B, the largest one here, of course, was associated with the Reid Bio shares, as I mentioned. What is listed here is at the June 30 mark, or the June closing of the first half, we had around 25 billion yen in cash. And that, of course, does not account for the Novartis upfront payment, which didn't come in until July. And so actually, I think at the end of July, we roughly have 50 billion yen plus in cash position. So we're an extremely positive and strong, the strongest we've ever had cash position for the company to start to deliver on our various goals. Moving into slide 10, our key areas of focus of the company remain unchanged. On the radiopharmaceutical side, again, we continue to drive the discovery of novel peptide delivery ligands that can be used as RI conjugates for not only diagnostic purposes, but also for, of course, therapeutic purposes, with the main focus being oncology. The overall goal, of course, is to grow and expand this pipeline as rapidly as possible. And I'll briefly touch on what I think are some fantastic achievements already seen to date and some of what we're looking forward to going forward. On the right side of this is around the non-radiopharmaceutical part of the business, where is a lot more of this part of the business, I think, is actually happening under the surface. And is maybe not as prominent, I guess I'd say, as the radiopharmaceutical achievements that have happened of late. However, oral peptide therapeutics, in addition to a number of novel classes of peptide drug conjugate, including peptide oligos or peptide cytotox conjugates, are in collaboration across a number and variety of collaboration partners, are making fantastic progress. And I really think the non-radiopharmaceutical side of the business is going to shine quite brightly through the end of the year and actually really into 2025. And so I think that's something that I think stakeholders should look forward to seeing this part of the business also shine as brightly as the radiopharmaceutical side of the business has. Moving to slide 11, initial key topics around the radiopharmaceutical side of the business. In the first half, of course, is highlighted with the Novartis expansion. But in addition to that, we've now had multiple RI-PDC programs from the 2019 deal are actually progressing toward clinical entry. And as I mentioned here in July, we actually had announced the second IND-enabling milestone of the second program, which I think is listed, as we'll touch on, as program number 3, moving toward the clinic. And so I'll mention about those in a second, but we're very much looking forward to some of the fruits of the labor of our Novartis, a long-term Novartis relationship to be seen here. As I mentioned, with the launch of Leqembi in Japan, Aimovig, the label was expanded in 2023. In addition to that, the NIH drug price standard was set, as is listed here, earlier in the first half year of this year. And so we're really looking forward to Aimovig being in a very strong position for Aimovig in this product and seeing revenue of this product grow going forward. The third point was actually the announcement of the LinkMed partnered 64 copper ATSM collaboration. The results of the safety and efficacy, or really the safety and dose finding study in the phase 1 were announced by LinkMed in concert with the National Cancer Center here in Japan recently. Happened in June. They actually presented some of this data at a conference also. And on the back of that, of course, we're seeing this product move forward here into a phase 3 study going forward. I'll touch on that again in a subsequent slide. Also is the phase 0 initiation of our in-house CA9 program. Very happy to see this. This is our first fully owned in-house theranostic pair or diagnostic plus therapeutic pair with initially the copper 64, so the diagnostic agent, going into the phase 0 study. We had the first patient imaged, I think in roughly the June timeline. We've now since seen a second patient imaged, and I think we've actually already now recruited a third patient to be imaged. The end goal is to see about a total of 6 patients to be imaged here over the coming months, and then we'll determine the best way to summarize and or disclose, provide an update on what we find from those results. I think thus far, and it would be premature to comment too much, but I think we're very excited about what we've seen thus far. But 2 patients does not make a study, of course, as of yet. So very positive about things and looking forward to the future when we can discuss this program more. Lastly, I think the new management team changed. So as we announced on July 1st, our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Murakami, or Masato Murakami, was also appointed as the new president of PDR Radio Pharma, which started from July 1, taking over from the prior president. And so we've had a little bit of a management reshuffle on the PDR Radio Pharma side. And I think with one, Dr. Murakami being an MD, and a PhD and an MBA, I guess, if we're going to go. He has a lot of letters after his name. But is really the right person to be running and leading PDR Radio Pharma for us at this stage. And I think his appointment at PDR Radio Pharma really further kind of synergizes or integrates the two companies, and will help just across the board for both companies to accelerate and expand the products and pipeline of what we're doing there. So very excited with that announcement and look forward to things to come. So as we look toward on slide 12, the kind of current pipeline, the big changes, at least on this slide specifically, and this is utilized, of course, in our quarterly report, is the LinkMed copper 64 ATSM moving into the phase 3 bucket now from the phase 1. So it's actually skipping the phase 2, moving directly into a phase 3, which in Japan, they don't really use the term registrational study. And so a phase 3 is referred to as a registrational study in this case. But this is the current standing. And this actually, in fact, started in June on the back of the phase 1 results. So very excited again with the progress of this program that we partnered with LinkMed at the end of 2023 on. The other addition that I would, I guess, highlight is the Novartis program number 3, which I touched on earlier. This was not previously in our pipeline. This has now, of course, initiated IND-enabling studies. And so we're looking forward. It's nice to see this addition to our pipeline going forward. So then I will briefly touch on each of these on slide 13 instead. So as mentioned, the ATSM product has already initiated the phase 3 study. And so we will look forward to the progress of this registrational study going forward. The Glypican-3 project, which is partnered, of course, with Reid Bio. And so just for everyone's know-how, we had thought once BMS took over Reid Bio that the name Reid Bio, in fact, might go away, but BMS has decided to maintain the Reid Bio name, and it will stay as Reid Bio, a BMS company going forward. So we will continue to refer to Reid Bio as Reid Bio, at least for the current or foreseeable future. And so the Glypican-3, both the therapeutic and the diagnostic, which we have Japan rights to both products. We're expecting IND filings here in the second half of 2024. I don't have exact dates for you at this stage. And then, of course, subsequent to the IND filings, we expect the phase 1s to start soon thereafter. This is currently being listed as, say, late 2024 and or early 2025. I'd say at this stage of the game, that's the best we can do as far as giving you exact timelines on that. In parallel to this, of course, PeptiDream and PDR Radiopharma are working with the Reid Bio folks to allow us to prepare for global inclusion and to, with the end goal being that any US, say, approval of either of these products will basically be happening at the same time as the Japan approval, so that we won't have any kind of drug lag or drug gap between the two different regions. That's the overall goal and understanding between PeptiDream and Reid Bio, and that is, of course, unchanged. So looking forward to, again, announce IND filings and phase 1 starts as we are able. On the renal cell carcinoma project, our CA9 project, again, as I briefly mentioned, the phase 0 is ongoing. We are aiming in parallel. The IND-enabling studies are also ongoing, and we are still gearing for the initiation of a phase 1 study sometime in 2025. Again, this is a fully owned product, both the therapeutic and the diagnostic, and at this stage of the game, we have no plans to out-license or partner this product. So the current goal is to take this actually into a phase 1 ourselves, and then we will go from there. The second bucket down is around oncology, not disclosed, TX and DX, and it suggests in-licensing late-stage pipelines. So as everyone is aware, similar to the ATSM program, which we in-licensed or partnered with LinkMed, we've actually, as we've mentioned in our quarterly report, we've been in discussions with a number of companies outside of Japan in regards to bringing their products from outside Japan or late-stage products from outside Japan into the Japan market. And these activities are continuing. We are expecting to have news here in the second half of 2024 in regards to the in-licensing of some late-stage assets to bring into the Japan market. And so I think stakeholders should look forward to those announcements, hopefully coming in the relatively near future. In addition to that, we have other existing products that we're actually working on label expansion here through the end of the year, but I think those are more likely to happen, of course, toward the 2025 fiscal year. The next bucket, as far as new clinical programs entering the clinic or phase 1s, the Novartis program number 2, we are expecting to see that move forward into a phase 1 study sometime here in the near future. At this stage, I cannot comment on whether that will happen in the second half of 2024 or not, but it is certainly moving in that direction. And so we have certain limitations as to maybe what we'll be able to disclose as far as, say, IND filing in regards to that project. But I think once that project, in fact, enters phase 1, we will be able to make an announcement in regards to that achievement. So that should be something we're very much looking forward to here. And then lastly is, of course, kind of new collaborations in the radiopharmaceutical space. And undoubtedly, of course, with the Novartis April announcement, there is just growing continually growing interest in collaborating with PeptiDream on novel targeted radiopharmaceuticals. And so, again, a lot of discussions actually happening at the moment in that area. On the diagnostic space, we are, of course, also investigating or in discussions with potentially in-licensing other diagnostic products that are actually either approved outside Japan or that are also in late stage. And so, again, as I mentioned, in-licensing discussions are always ongoing, and I think you'll be hearing more as we start to consummate some of those deals. And then again, we also have kind of new formulations going on with other existing products. So I think on slide 14, I think everyone is quite aware of this, but I don't believe we didn't have a first quarter or earnings call, and so just for everyone's kind of review, the targeted radiotherapeutic space has just in the last 12 months undergone what you would call quite a dramatic change. And so this is a very nice slide kind of highlighting the history of targeted radiotherapeutics, of course. With from the left is, of course, Lutathera. This is the US approval of Lutathera, which actually had been, of course, discovered by AAA there, that Novartis had acquired way back when. I think they acquired them in 2016. And then actually moving into PSMA, or the US approval of Pluvicto here in 2022, also a Novartis product out of Endocyte. And both of these two targets, SSTR2, which is the target of Lutathera, and also a number of other SSTR2 compounds that are in late-stage development. In addition to that, the PSMA side. So Pluvicto is not the only compound, of course, targeting PSMA. Curium also has late-stage assets. Point Biopharma, which has now been purchased by Lilly, also has phase 3 assets targeting or targeted radiotherapeutics targeting PSMA for prostate cancer. And so what we saw in late 2023, of course, is Lilly coming in and buying Point Biopharma. We saw Bristol Myers coming in buying RayzeBio. And then here into 2024, AstraZeneca taking over Fusion Pharmaceuticals. And Novartis actually also making acquisition of Mariana Oncology. And so it went from really just kind of two pharmaceutical players in the space with Novartis and Bayer up till 2023 to now, having Lilly, BMS, Genentech Roche Group, AstraZeneca, Novartis already being there. Also Janssen, in fact, actually has started to announce some of their targeted radiopharmaceutical compounds. So now most of the big pharma companies have actually moved into this space over the last 12 to 24 months. So it's an extremely exciting time. And I would say still the biggest challenge of this space is the quality of the ligand you use to deliver these radioisotopes. And whether that being a small molecule, whether that being a macrocyclic peptide, or whether that being an antibody delivery vehicle, I think is the large differentiator. And just for everyone's reference, Lutathera on the left, most of the SSTR2 targeting compounds are macrocyclic peptides, really based off of the original natural peptide ligand of that receptor. On the PSMA side, most of these are actually what you'd call small molecule or peptidomimetic type compounds, which actually mimic the natural ligand of PSMA itself. And so we, of course, believe, we actually believe a number of the pharmaceuticals also companies believe this, that macrocyclic peptides may be, in fact, the ideal way to target the vast majority of the relevant, say, target space for this field. This is very much an exciting time. There are just very few companies that can actually have the ability to find these macrocyclic peptide ligands and or optimize them for this type of uses and application. So I think with that kind of PeptiDream's role in this field is not going to go away. It is only going to continue to increase going forward. So on the non-radiopharmaceutical side of the business, in the first half of this year, one of the larger parts of the news was, of course, the acquisition of our partner, strategic partner, Amlite Pharma by AstraZeneca, which actually just closed, was announced earlier in the year, and just closed here in July. And now AstraZeneca is, of course, taking over development of our partnered program, AZP3813, which is a growth hormone antagonist peptide for acromegaly. Amlite has been doing a fantastic job of presenting the data from this exciting program. Had completed a phase 1 study just recently, and a lot of that data was actually presented at ECE and Endo conferences here in June, late May and June of 2024. And so we're very much looking forward to this program continuing. I'll touch on that briefly. We also had the initiation of another phase 1 from Merck, from one of our macrocyclic peptides discovered by PDEPS for the treatment of inflammatory disease. This is actually the second Merck partnered program to enter the clinic. The first one entered the clinic in July of 2023. And so, of course, this is something we're extremely delighted to be able to announce and extremely pleased to see the progress of. The number 3 here is our PeptiAid partnered PA001, which will actually be, as we've announced recently, the IND application has been filed, has been accepted, and actually will be progressing here into a phase 1 study in healthy volunteers for the safety, tolerability, and PK aspects of PA001. So we're looking forward to that. And additionally, we also, as yesterday, achieved a second milestone from our collaboration with Polar. In addition to that, we've had a number of other preclinical milestones achieved across a number of collaboration programs that simply either have not been for financial or we were not able to make press releases in regards to. And so exceptional progress, I think, a lot more maybe under the surface happening across the non-radiopharmaceutical side of the business. In regards to the pipeline specifically, the only big change, so we haven't yet, the GHR antagonist program, AZP3313, on this chart still remains at phase 1. We're expecting, of course, that to move into a phase 2 here in the near future. And once that does, we'll account for that accordingly, of course. The other addition to this chart that wasn't there previously, of course, is the Merck program number 2, which we were able to disclose that the disease area is actually for inflammatory diseases, which is one positive, although at this stage, we're still not able to disclose what the target of either program 1 or program 2 are at this stage. And as we announced in our quarterlies, there will be certain aspects to these programs that we are not going to be able to disclose, probably until they reach or ascend to phase 2 type studies, which at what point I think we'll be able to be potentially more transparent in what we are able to discuss in regards to these specific programs. As Merck classically does not list phase 1 programs in their own pipeline. And so, yeah, looking at slide 17, though, as far as just what we're looking at the second half of 2024 and beyond, as I mentioned, one of the larger ones will be the AZP3813, moving into a phase 2 study. At this time, I can't give you an exact date of that happening. We will announce it as soon as we are allowed to, and once AstraZeneca allows us to do so. As far as the CD38 ARM program, partnered with Biohaven, that continues in a physician-led study. Our PD-L1 inhibitor program, which of course I had announced last year that BMS would not continue into a phase 2 study. I don't have or I can't make any specific updates to that program at this stage. We are still awaiting the full results or the results of the phase 1 study from BMS, and there are a number of discussions around that program going on at this time. I think in all likelihood, the goal is to have a decision on the PD-L1 inhibitor program, hopefully by the end of the year, that we can potentially make available or discuss further with stakeholders. As I mentioned, the two Merck programs, and also as I mentioned, to what extent we'll be able to announce any updates in regards to those phase 1 studies will be completely dependent on Merck and what they allow us to disclose and or discuss. And so we'll have to play that very much by ear. The S2 protein, so this is the peptide, of course, we'll initiate the phase 1. And then as we look more toward the end of the year and into 2025, we're, of course, expecting the additional selection of a number of clinical candidates, potentially across a number of programs, and also with a goal toward initiating clinical trials for those programs subsequent to those clinical candidate nominations. Lastly, as far as kind of a select internal preclinical programs, I know there's significant interest in regards to our myostatin inhibitor program. At current, our myostatin inhibitor, which we have both an injectable version and an oral version of this macrocyclic peptide series at this stage, of course, is being tested in a variety of different obesity animal models. As I have previously mentioned, it is not one, just for clarity, it is not one single study. Because these are high-fat animal studies, you actually have to use quite a large N number of animals for every specific, say, compound and or dose that you're investigating. And so it's quite challenging to actually run, say, a variety of parameters in parallel. So this is very much a sequential effort that's actually happening. Initially with us focused on, say, validating the obesity effect or benefit in obesity of our myostatin injectable in combination with semaglutide in these type of studies, to which then will be extended into the oral version also. So there's actually quite a variety of parameters here to work out. The real goal is, as we gear toward the end of the year, to continue to build out the data package around the use of these peptides in obesity, in addition to the DMD package that we have, with a gear toward partnering discussions, I'd say, in 2025. And so again, as I mentioned earlier, in light of the Novartis deal, we're in the enviable position, I think, of not having to outlicense this program in 2024, which we might have tried to do had we had not, say, consummated the Novartis deal. And so the Novartis deal really allows us to I think, build out the data package and puts us in a stronger position toward 2025. And there's no shortage of interest in this program. We've been reached out to by almost all of the large pharmaceutical companies in regards to this. And so it's an exciting time for this program. We want to simply make the very best decisions in regards to what we do with it. Additionally, as listed here, the allergic diseases KIT inhibitor, this program is in fact partnered with, I'll never say the name right, Alivexis. It used to be Modulus Discovery, now Alivexis, who is actually leading the out-licensing efforts of that program, which we're expecting to happen, again, sometime in the relatively near future, to which we will announce. We, of course, have a stake in that program in partnership with Alivexis. Yep. And then the last bucket is there's a number of additional programs that I think are happening as we look toward more of these, probably toward 2025. Specifically, I think stakeholders should look forward to probably announcements around peptide oligo conjugates and also peptide cytotox conjugates into the fiscal 2025 timeframe. I think we have some very exciting announcements that should be coming around those programs in the future. On slide 18 is just, this is for completeness purposes around the GHR antagonist, our amyloids, the partner program with amyloid in the clinical update. And just really just summary of the phase 1 clinical trial. Of course, we had announced this in the press release. And really that the AZP3813, in fact, just showed fantastic phase 1 results. Of course, these were healthy individuals. However, they could also see that in a dose-dependent manner, the AZP3813 substantially decreased circulating IGF levels, controlled them very well in these patients, and really is strongly supportive, of course, of taking this forward into patients with acromegaly in the phase 2. So I think these were as good as results as anyone could hope for, and so we're very much looking forward to this program moving forward. Lastly, on slides 19 and 20, so 19 first, is of course we had revised revenue upward of 45, and core operating profit is to 20.5, operating profit to 20.1, and then net income to 14. While we've of course exceeded those numbers at current through the first half of the year already, as I mentioned, we will upward revise revenue and or any of these numbers accordingly once we are confident of where they will end up. So under I believe Japan listing rules for revenue, if we see revenue coming in at greater than 10% of this number, so roughly around the 50 billion yen mark, then that would automatically trigger us to do an upward revision. And so I think that's how just the second half of 2024 is going to look for us. So this could happen potentially at any time for us going forward. Lastly, on slide 20 is this chart, which we continue to use. It did have FY 2024 in at having about 35 billion yen, and had this a little bit more nice slow step as we move toward our goal of 50 billion yen in annual revenue, say in the midterm. But of course, on the backs of the Novartis deal, we've seen that significantly jump here in 2024. As we look toward 25, I guess one of the comments I would make as we look toward fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26, one question from stakeholders might be, do we anticipate, say, overall revenue going back down to the 30 billion and 35 billion yen mark, say, of our previous projections? And I would largely say, you can never completely rule the possibility of that out, of course. But I think we actually have a growing number of internal assets that I think that doesn't have to happen, right? I actually have growing confidence that we hopefully could kind of maintain the kind of revenue projections depicted here in this slide over the midterm. And I'm certainly, I think we're extremely confident in our long-term projections and our ability to meet those type of numbers. But what happens here over 2025 and 2026, as we wait to see some of these products reach market in the 27, 28, 29 timeframe, will be interesting. But again, as I mentioned, the collaboration value or the value of, say, the financial terms around any collaborations with PeptiDream has grown significantly, and I think that puts us in a significantly stronger position than we were even 12 months ago, as far as, again, what we would expect for financials to do a deal with PeptiDream in 2024. So we're at a very, very good position for the company. I couldn't be more excited with where we stand from both a financial perspective, but more so around what we've seen in regards to both our radiopharmaceutical development pipeline, and then what you're going to see, I think, from the non-radiopharmaceutical clinical pipeline that we have. So I think it's an extremely exciting time for the company, and really looking forward to some fantastic announcements coming here over the second half of 2024 and beyond.